The Queen was a composer.
Coming up, a Native Hawaiian composer turns to the story of Queen Lili'uokalani for inspiration. Plus, we speak to a doctor about the importance of men's health and early prevention. Join us for those interviews, plus headlines on the ICT Newscast.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
Support for the ICT Newscast with Aaliyah Chavez comes from the Arizona PBS studios in Phoenix at the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communications at Arizona State University.
Amadawa Hopa. Thank you for joining us. I am Aaliyah Chavez. We start today in California, where state lawmakers recently received an assessment of a tool hoping to address the crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous people. The Feather Alert was passed into law in 2022 and is similar to the Amber Alert. Families, advocates, and law enforcement told state lawmakers last week that while it has delivered positive results, there are still some wrinkles that need to be addressed. Teralyn Epina, whose sister went missing in San Francisco last year, spoke to the media about the effectiveness of the alert.
Unfortunately, we attempted to issue a Feather Alert, but it was denied. Being denied a Feather Alert based on an opinion contradicts the very intent of the legislation.
Epina was pointing to the 5 criteria points that need to be followed for a Feather Alert to be activated. Law enforcement are the ones making the decision to issue one, and just some of the criteria include that the Indigenous person went missing under suspicious circumstances and that they are actively in danger. Other states like Colorado, Washington, and Oklahoma have similar alert systems. Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Ceasefire! That sound greeted council members in Portland, Oregon, where more than 100 community members gathered in a downtown park for an Indigenous-led ceremony to show support to Palestine. A Lemhi Nation citizen shared his hopes for Palestine to be free. Community members later filled the City of Portland's council meeting, demanding for officials to pass a resolution calling for an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza. Scientists in Alaska have discovered new links in the relationship of woolly mammoths and Alaska Native people. Researchers have traced the travels of a 14,000-year-old woolly mammoth nicknamed Elma that was on her journey through Alaska and Canada. The study by the University of Alaska Fairbanks reveals that early Indigenous Alaska Natives established their settlements near the habitat of the mammoths, and scientists used bone analysis to make these findings using one of the animal's tusks that was excavated in 2009. Well, the war between Ukraine and Russia is believed to be affecting what we know about climate change. A team of international scientists found that by Russia excluding its data from research, it is increasing environmental variables. Russia makes up almost 50% of the total land area in the Arctic. According to the science director of the Toolik Field Station in Alaska, the ability to exchange information internationally is crucial to addressing environmental changes that can give us important insights into how to save our warming planet. In Nevada, a tribal nation is continuing its fight to reclaim and preserve a site sacred to their history. Great Basin tribes are lobbying the federal government to designate nearly 40 miles as Bosawabi National Monument. This includes the Eli Shoshone, the Duckwater Shoshone, and the Confederated Tribes of the Goshute Reservation. To tribal citizens, Bosawabi is Shoshone for Sacred Water Valley. The site is the final resting place of their ancestors who were slain in an 1800s massacre. Advocates say this effort for the water and land is important, but the monument is really an opportunity to tell their story on their own terms. Lili'uokalani is pushing the boundaries of storytelling through opera. The Native Arts and Culture Foundation awarded the Pulitzer Prize finalist a Shift grant. Shirley Sney has the story on how she turns to Hawaiian history, language, and imprisonment.
Lili'u is a new opera set in 1895 when the last queen of Hawaii, Lili'uokalani, was imprisoned in Iolani Palace for the better part of a year. She was imprisoned in the palace for allegedly supporting movement to take back the kingdom after the overthrow that had happened 2 years previous. During this time when she was imprisoned in the palace, she wasn't able to communicate with people very much, but her captors thought that there were a few things that were kind of like craft that they felt were innocuous. Working on a quilt with her companions that was called the crazy quilt, and that's a specific style of quilting from that era. Working with flowers, getting flowers every day from people outside that were being brought in, and composing. The opera itself is about Indigenous resilience and honoring Lili'uokalani's ability to move forward and preserve language and culture through her own music. And so I wanted to make sure that as I build this opera project, that's also creating sustainability and resilience for Native artists.
The subject of your project, The Queen, is a storied life. And we know quite a bit about her. I mean, even me here in Nebraska, I know who she is and the legacy that she's led. Why was this important for you to tell her story?
I was interested in telling it specifically in this way as an opera because Lili'uokalani was writing an opera. She was a composer and she expressed herself through music. And especially in the specific period of her life that I'm writing about in the opera, the imprisonment, she was able to communicate with the outside world, and she was able to survive and continue with composition, with this artistic practice that she had. I wanted to tell it in this way to honor the kind of expression that she was, the medium of expression, even though my style of writing is different, and to kind of also shed light on how incredible her work was as an artist, and how she had at the time practiced radical Indigenous contemporaneity with her own compositions. And so I think showing how that through thread and showing the way that she was able to do that with her compositions honors her work in, I feel, a true way with her own words. That was really important to me in terms of uplifting her work through this other lens, in this contemporary lens, and showing how contemporary and how radical it was that she was combining these styles, combining this kind of Western hymn style and contrapuntal writing with chant and Hawaiian ways of constructing kauna and meaning into songs. Every day when she got flowers from her supporters, they had hidden little pieces of fabric in the flowers or wrapped them in the newspaper of the day and then wrapped that again so that people wouldn't notice that it was the current news. In this way, she was able to stay abreast of what was going on in the world and know if her people were safe. I'm really honored to be one of the Shift awardees this year in partnership with Te Ao Mana, which is a dance group based in New York City, but founded by leaders of Pacific heritage. And so what we were doing in partnering was just, they're so involved in the community and they're already doing so much in the community and connected to other Indigenous communities in the New York area. And so I wanted to bring them on because Tane, or Anthony Ayu, who's one of the co-founders of Te Ao Mana, is a really gorgeous dancer and choreographer. What we ended up submitting and what we will be doing for our Shift project is that Te Ao Mana will not just be the dancers for the opera with Tane doing the choreography, but they will also be a community partner, so that in the time leading up to the opera, there'll be free dance classes for the community, and there'll be different opportunities for community to come together with the idea that leading up to the opera, we have these other community offerings so that the experimental opera at the end is the big party that the community gets to come to. She was able to write these songs that sounded like they were about the beautiful flowers or they were about a beloved person, but in fact they were through kauna, or the hidden meaning, expressing her love for her people. And she says in one of them that was published in a Hawaiian newspaper, you know, the one refrain of my heart is for the love of my people.
Shirley, Sney, ICT News.
The opera will be performed in New York in 2025. To see the entire video by 10/4, visit ictnews.org. Languages are among our most valued resources. Ensuring that they are preserved and taught is important in Indigenous communities and here at ICT. We're continuing our new segment called Language Breaks. They will feature speakers from across Turtle Island sharing their beautiful and bold words and phrases. We bring you a taste of Ojibwe from the Red Lake Nation in Minnesota.
Menogijiga Nungam. Menogijiga Nungam. It is a good day today. Menogijiga Nungam. The word minnow is talking about something that is good, nice, or well. Gijigud is a word for day. And then Nungam means today. So we put all three together, we have Menogijiga Nungam. It is a good day today.
A clinic in Oklahoma held a men's health fair late last year. Dr. Tyler Freeman tells us why regular checkups are important. ICT's Shirley Sney has this interview.
Well, joining me today is Dr. Tyler Freeman, and he's in family practice at the Oklahoma City Indian Clinic. And I thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate being here.
I want to talk to you about the men's health fair that the Oklahoma City Indian Clinic just had. Tell us about why you do this and why it's important.
Yeah, the Men's Health Fair is something that we host every year. We have several health fairs that we use throughout the year to champion different health inequities or different demographics within our patient population to really help capture those people who haven't made it into the clinic to get that screening that we know is so important for them. Men's Health Fair is one of those. Men oftentimes are not the ones you frequently see in the clinic, and so a lot of times the health fair is an opportunity we have to sort of lure them in with prizes, or we'll have different vendors present that they might be interested in speaking with, and we are able to take the opportunity to also help them live healthier lives.
You are in family practice, and what does that mean as far as treating families, I guess? What are your concerns about family health care?
As a family medicine physician, I'm in a unique opportunity where I really get to practice family medicine. I still do obstetrics, I deliver babies, I have a large pediatrics clinic, and then I also see adolescents, young adults, all the way up into adulthood and geriatric population. So starting to become less and less common for family physicians to really, from babies all the way up to old age, to treat their patients. Certainly, I think it's a unique opportunity that I have and our team here at the Oklahoma City Indian Clinic has to talk to our patients about lifelong health, really focusing on prevention during those early decades of life, talking about the importance of what we're eating, how we're moving, the things that we choose to do with our time. And then that transitions into middle and older life where screening really becomes the primary concern, and trying to be mindful of those things that we know, especially amongst Native Americans, are a higher risk for impacting our lifespan.
If you had 3 things that you wish your patients would do, what would that be?
Go outside more often, move their bodies more frequently, and choose better food more often. Those would be the 3.
That sounds like great advice.
Most people would not have a bad day if they just did those 3 things more often. Unfortunately, sometimes there's some things that keep people from making those decisions for themselves, but That's something that we, as a culture, as Native Americans, are trying to kind of lift each other up and get some of those barriers out of the way, I think.
I know some of my relatives say, well, they can't afford to eat healthy. How do you respond to that?
I definitely have heard that before, and I don't disagree that cost is sometimes a part of being able to choose the best foods. I think another part of it, more than being able to afford the food itself, is people within lower socioeconomic status are often in neighborhoods or areas that we would consider food deserts, which is such a strange concept. But even for populations of people in Oklahoma City, which is a large metropolitan area, you might not be able to find fresh food or good food within a mile, 2 miles of your home. And so even in an urban setting, people who have less income, less ability to travel, and less, money to spend on food, certainly I think it's a factor in how they choose what to eat and what they can afford. I would encourage Native Americans, be it men and women or anyone from kind of our young children up to our elders, come in and see your doctor. I think that's the biggest factor is come in, Indian Health, we're here to support you. We're here to kind of help educate. We have a lot of opportunities for screening that everybody's aunties, uncles, grandmas, that we all need you to come in and get seen for us to be able to take care of you. Come join the family and be a part of the conversation to help live a healthier life.
Well, Dr. Freeman from the Oklahoma City Indian Clinic, thank you very much for joining the ICT Newscast.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All across the country, we hear news of tribal nations getting land back. Whether that's through an outright purchase or a donation, the movement is gaining traction. A project at the University of Kansas is putting it all on a map. An idea of MacArthur Fellow Sarah Deer, a fellow professor, helped her create a website to quantify land back. ICT's Shirley, Sney, and Stuart Huntington have this interview.
The origins of it are probably 10 to 12 years ago. I had found a story about a Pennsylvania farmer who discovered that he was on stolen Delaware land and decided on his own accord to find a way to return that land to the Delaware tribe. The Delaware tribe's now in Oklahoma, so Pennsylvania has been a long time ago. And I was just touched by the story, that when we talk about land back, it's not a metaphor, it's actual land back. And as a private landowner, I found it very interesting that he would do that. And so I wondered if there were other private landowners that had some interest in donating or returning, I should say, the land to its rightful owners. And I came up with a list over time. Then I met Ward at the University of Kansas, shared the list with him, and he made a map.
In terms of the map, it's a collection of publicly available news links that started with the list that Sarah shared, and then I researched to find news stories that were already in circulation about instances of return of land, and used an ArcGIS web-based software that's publicly available to create the map and to provide links to the news stories and also to the tribe or nation or group page of the folks who had received the land.
Yeah, we're still just now getting the word out.
Okay.
And we hope that, with some publicity, that we can get some feedback from private landowners who have donated land or tribal nations themselves. And again, it's just trying to help people think about land back as a literal return of stolen land. And so we anticipate this to be a dynamic project that will be ongoing and regularly updated with new information that we come into, that we learn about.
We've had students involved at different points of time at different degrees. This project is one that, as Sarah mentioned, she shared the idea with me, and I've been working on it, but it's not an externally funded project or a grant. It's our time as academics, and there have been some students who've to date donated their time. I do anticipate that now that word is getting out, and even just from our own accumulation of news stories, we may have to change the platform that we're on a little bit, because the number of instances of land return or things that are close enough to land return to be included on the map is going beyond the software's capacity to host them. And so that will probably be a project that actually involves students a little more in trying to get them opportunities that can help them build their knowledge, but also build their careers.
I think there are probably ways to use this project in contexts that I haven't even thought of yet. It's primarily right now to educate, to give people a sense of what's happening, perhaps inspire other landowners who live on stolen land to be inspired by that and consider themselves where their land is and who it originally belonged to. I also think that it's, providing data for the land back movement as a whole, to say again that this is not just an aspiration or a metaphor, but it can actually happen. And then the third audience, I think, would be, other scholars and academics who may be writing about land back and can use this map to find specific data that's relevant to their own writing project. So it kind of depends on who's looking at it in terms of how the tool can be used.
Looking through the news or podcast or whatnot, then I think about the connections between, say, the Quapaw land in Oklahoma, where there were lead and zinc mines, and the connections then when you think about that lead and zinc went into so many of the bullets that have been used in wars around the wars of colonial conquest in the 20th century, and just the connections between how land has been used and misused and how it's being returned and what condition it's in. Because that's certainly one of the questions here is there capacity to manage the land well? Is the capacity remotely close to where the land is, right? Because we have here in Kansas lots of lineages with different tribes that this is not their ancestral homeland. So it goes to a very basic question of who is the land returned to? So again, this hopefully it helps the website, and its evolution will help people think through different dimensions, legal, moral, ethical, relational, around these projects.
One of the links we have, because in addition to the map, if you continue to scroll down and are patient, you'll get a list of links. And some of those links inform the user as to the legal implications of the transfer of land and the complexity of the return because of questions of taxes and inheritance and trust land and all of those things, which we already know are super complicated in Indian country without land back. And so, we would, encourage anyone who is thinking about this kind of project to consult an Indian law attorney early on in the process.
So I wanted to check in to see how everything was going with your pregnancy too.
Your food choices affect you, it affects the baby, and it affects your family. It's important to have a balanced diet with foods from all of the different food groups. carbohydrates, water, fats, protein, vitamins, and minerals, all great things for baby. It's going to be 17.5 teaspoons of sugar in 1 can of iced tea.
I'm gonna back off on the Arizona tea for some time.
I really love and enjoy the program. It was an easy connection for us when I first met her. It was just like I could relate. She was welcoming. It made me feel comfortable.
Everybody has different beliefs. What I like about Family Spirit is that it takes that into consideration, honoring their beliefs and their background. For different cultures,
he babbles all the time, and like he'll point to banana and say, "You want banana?" So that's kind of how we communicate and know what he does want and what he doesn't.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.